Welcome to the In Chamber, the place where we focus on the issues that shape business success. I'm your co-host, Rebecca Patrick. I'm the Senior Vice President of Communications for the Indiana Chamber of Commerce. Joining me at the microphone is Anthony Shutley, our Director of Communications. In Chamber is presented by Work and Learn Indiana. For our second episode of Season 5, we're going to talk about young talent and experiential learning in the workforce. There's a great opportunity taking place in Indianapolis for at-risk youth to get on the right path to a fulfilling career, and at the same time, for employers to make important connections to mentor, or in some cases, identify potential employees. Our guests fall on both sides of the equation. Tyler Mayer is president and CEO of Providence Cristo Rey High School, a Roman Catholic school in Indianapolis that has an Inventive work-study program as part of its mission. And Dr. Rob Shumaker is president of the Indianapolis Zoo, which is a corporate supporter of Providence Cristo Rey's program. Welcome to you both.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Tyler, let's start with you to learn more about Providence Cristo Rey, which opened its Indianapolis location in 2007. How is it fundamentally different from other Indiana schools? Offline, you mentioned there are 3 distinct elements. Give us a brief overview.
Yeah, thanks. So like we had spoken earlier, there are 3 distinct elements of Providence Cristo Rey. 1 is common and 2 are unique. So the mission of Providence Cristo Rey High School is that we provide a transformational educational experience to students with economic need. So we're only serving students and families that come from those low-income situations. And like I said, I didn't say now, but I said earlier, we are part of a network full of schools. There's actually 38 total Cristo Rey schools across the nation. We're the only one here in Indiana. All of us share the same 3 elements. Here in Indiana, like I said, 1 is common and 2 are unique. So the first element is that we are a college prep academic program. We have an academic program of the highest caliber that's preparing our students for that next level of success in college. I say that's the common one because here in Indianapolis and in Indiana, we're lucky. We've got a lot of great private, parochial, public high schools that are all college prep that are preparing students for that rigor in college. For us, it's exciting because for over 10 years, we've had 100% college acceptance rate. In the last handful of years, 100% of our students have been graduating with college credit. And this last 2 years, it's been an average of 17 college credit hours per graduating senior upon their high school graduation day. When they walk across that stage, there they are, 17 college credit hours at high school graduation time. That's extraordinary for any high school. For us, it's even more exciting because our students start at an average of a 6th grade reading, math, science level when they start high school. And then 4 years later, not only are they being accepted to college, 100% of them, but they're also receiving college credit. So, that's exciting for us. That's a pretty common thing here in Indiana, those students receiving a college prep academic program, but also receiving college credits upon high school graduation. That's element number 1. Element number 2 is that we're committed to college completion. So I'm about 1.5 years on the job here at Providence. I spent the 13 previous years at Bishop Sturt High School in Broad Ripple. And of 8 of those 13 years, I was a teacher. And graduation was always one of my most favorite experiences because you get to know these students as freshmen. That's why I was a freshman teacher. And they come into your classroom and you get to know them. They're just a bunch of goobers. You think, okay, how did you even find your way to class today? And then 4 years later, there they are graduating, walking across the stage. Next to their families, we become their biggest supporters and cheerleaders, but our professional relationship was done. Well, the students at Providence Cristo Rey, they're the first ones to go to college in their families. But since they're the first ones to go to college in their families and they're coming from low income situations, a lot of them don't have those support systems at home. So we actually have paid staff members that continue to work with those students post high school graduation all the way through college completion. So we're focused on that. And we look at data to know how we're doing. So when you look at low income students nationally and compare them to students in the Cristo Rey model, we double the amount of students that go to college and double the amount that graduate from college. So that's element number 2, college completion. The third element is corporate work study, and that's what we're best known for. So our students at our school go to school 4 days a week, and then they work 1 day a week. And that 1 day a week they work helps offset tuition. Since tuition at Providence Cristo Rey High School costs $17,000 a year, and we are serving families that are unable to afford that, we have to come up with a unique funding model. And that's part of it, is that these students are earning, in part, their tuition. And what starts off as a necessity really has evolved in something much more cutting edge and innovative. Because not only are students helping earn their tuition, but going out in the corporate work study space, spending one day a week out in the working world, they're learning soft skills and hard skills, but they're also getting access to opportunities. So that's our school, that's our mission. Those are the three elements: college completion, corporate work study, and a college prep academic program.
What is the employer's commitment, both financially and providing that on-the-job experience?
Yeah, good question. So the companies, when they sign up for this program, they're committing to, first and foremost, the fee, which is $6,200 per student per year. Some companies have one student, some companies have over 20, and that fee is $6,200 per student for the school year. More importantly, though, they're committing to providing a space and opportunity for our students to explore interests, to learn those soft skills and hard skills, but also to become better versions of themselves. And that really only comes the way of mentorship, right? So every company that signs on with us also selects a person or a team of folks on their end that will serve as what we call the career mentors or supervisors. These are the folks that will be working with our students day in and day out, not only teaching them and modeling for them what those jobs these students will be doing while they're with them, but also helping them with a lot of other outside skills that help them become better professionals. So really, it's a twofold thing. It's not only a financial commitment, but a commitment of time and intentional focus on helping these young people see their strengths and their weaknesses and become better professionals.
Tyler, about how many employers participate in the corporate work study program, and how would you like to see that grow?
Oh, that's a great question. So we any year is different. This year we have 92 partners, which we're very excited about. That's a high number of partners for us. How would we like to see it grow? It's really in a twofold way. First and foremost, we're lucky to have a lot of great partners. 92, that's a high amount. What we'd like to see is more companies that have, I don't know if I would say name recognition or are substantial to the city of Indianapolis. That's for two reasons. One, we want our students having experiences at companies that can provide them opportunities that our students, because of the zip codes they're born into, would never have access to, number one. Number two, we believe if we're doing our job right, that we are forming future leaders for the city. And we want our students to be incorporated into those organizations like the Indianapolis Zoo that mean something to the city. They have name recognition that if we do our job right, our students, as they become professionals, we're helping the city become better because organizations are better because students that came from Providence Cristo Rey are part of those organizations. So that's one way we'd like to see it grow. The other way we'd like to see it grow is we want to listen to our students as they're transitioning into high school. What are their interests? What do they like to do? I'll give you an example. This year is the first time we've ever had a restaurant as a partner. We have a student who would like to be a chef. And so we went out and talked to a couple restaurants. We actually signed Ruth Chris on as a corporate work study partner this year because we had a student that's interested in that. So it's equal parts. We want to intentionally grow, especially with those companies that mean something to the city of Indianapolis. But also we want to listen to our students. What areas of interest do they have? And try to match them up with opportunities that can help them explore those interests a little further. Outside of that, we do our work every year to look at the industries in which we don't have as many partners in and or industries we think are growing. So like everybody else, that tech space continues to be a point of desired growth for us because every year I think there's, whatever jobs exist today won't exist 6 years from now. And there'll be new tech jobs 6 years from now that we want our students to be part of as well.
Rebecca, if I could go backward just a half a step real quick, I wanted to ask Tyler about one other aspect of the school's mission that I think is really brilliant, and that is staying involved with the students as they progress through college. As a first-generation college student myself, I mean, you can be at a tremendous competitive disadvantage to other college students. So how is it that you guys stay involved with your students as they progress through college, and how did you come to that?
Okay, so I would say we can't take all the credit for how we came to that. Being a network full of schools, we learn best practice from others. And we are in our third year of this initiative of having paid staff members that work with our students both before they graduate, getting them ready for that college process while they're in high school, but then follow along with them after high school graduation. So we really learned this from other Cristo Rey schools that did it really, really well. But I mean, there's really no secret sauce. It's really intentional relationship development. So these are our employees that are working. Our primary focus is to work with our students post high school graduation. are starting with them, in the beginning phase of their freshman year, and building those intentional, meaningful relationships to help all of our students not only figure out what's the right college path for them, but then help them through that college path, so that once they leave our halls, and it's a lot harder, those communication or touch points aren't as natural or easy. They form such a strong relationship that follow-up and those touch points are natural. We've gotten to a point now this last year where on several occasions, one young man had an issue with his billing in college, and one of our female students had an issue with her roommate. Those students didn't call their families, they didn't call the school, they called the staff members at our school to help them figure out those normal-ish issues that college students will face. And so that shows us that we're on the right path, that we're developing those meaningful relationships intentionally, so that those students see us as that resource and initiate the communication with us as much as we have institutionalized touch points throughout their college years.
Rob, what really attracted the Indianapolis Zoo to Cristo Rey's work study initiative, and when did your participation begin?
A little bit like Tyler, I can't take credit for our initial interest in this program. I've been here for about 12 years at the zoo, and discussions about this were already underway. Our participation started in 2014, and at the time it was an initiative that began through our HR department. Our vice president who runs HR, Mary Jane Bennett, has been a huge supporter of this program from 2014 all the way through until today. So she was the initial driving force, and I think it was her familiarity with the school, but also her interest in the students that really drove her to investigate it, become involved. So what I can tell you is in 2014, we made a commitment, and from 2014 until this year, obviously 2020 was an unusual year, but from 2014 until today, we had 1 to 3 students each school year, but we've changed that this year, and we've now committed to 4 students a year, and that is our commitment going forward. We are thrilled with the program, and we remain very strong supporters of this important initiative.
So help us paint a picture a little bit of how this works in practice when it's implemented. How do you incorporate the students into the zoo's culture and activities?
I can tell you how I view it. I'm not sure if this is exactly how the students view it or how Tyler views it, but I can tell you how I view it. We have these students for 1 day every week, but this is for 4 years. So I think that's one piece to remember that's important about this. This is not an annual commitment with a student. When we start with a student, we expect to be working with them 1 day a week for their entire high school career, so a total of 4 years. And we've done that very successfully. So to answer your question, I need to just explain one small thing that isn't always evident to people. When people think about the zoo, they assume that we're talking about working with animals. Well, of course, that's true, but there's the behind the scenes stuff at the zoo that most visitors are unaware of. And I would say that we have almost every profession you could imagine, or type of profession you could imagine working here. So when we say working at the zoo, our 4 students this year, or I prefer the way the terminology Providence Cristo Rey uses, the 4 scholars we have working here this year fall into 4 very different departments. One is working in an animal department. That's easy to imagine. Another one had an interest in education. This is her 2nd year. She works in our education department. A third works in our IT department, and a 4th had an interest in security. So he's working in our security department. So the overall culture of the zoo is very welcoming, very appealing. We are here for everyone in our community, but I think it's probably fair to say that each department is a little bit distinct. Security is a little bit different than IT versus education and so on. So I think the the selection process where students go through a kind of the recruitment process to figure out what department they're going to be in, we wind up finding these young scholars who already are predisposed to some of those departments because they come in with a specific interest. I think that's a very smart way to do this. It's not as if we just receive 4 students and place them wherever we want. They're going where they want. And I think that is part of the reason this continues to be so successful for us.
Rob, I have a question for you, but I need to give put a little context to it. So I wanted to bounce to Tyler real quick and just ask him what the demographic was of the student body at Providence Cristo Rey.
We are a 97% diverse student body. This year, we are 66% Latino, 26% Black or African American. After that, we are multiracial and then white, and then less than 1% Asian. But that's a category that continues to grow the last 3 years. So that's the demographic breakdown of us right now. And before we move on to Rob, one point I'd like to just make off of what Rob had said earlier is that the zoo's committed to those students all 4 years. That's an option we give to companies. Most of them take that, but not all. Some companies want different sets of students every year. But if you're going to ask what we prefer, it's really we prefer whatever best is for the company. But we love to hear the stories that are of the students that are with those organizations for longer than a year to see what happens. Because at a place like the zoo, which is, as Rob mentioned, there's so many different opportunities for those students to explore interests and figure out what they want to do and what they don't want to do. So 2 quick stories. One, we have a graduate, an alumni of Providence Cristo Rey High School that's a senior in college. He was really interested in IT, and he worked at the zoo in the IT department his sophomore year. And after that sophomore year, he figured out IT is not for him. Then his junior year, he thought, well, I'd like to interact with people more, guests more. And he really liked the culture of the zoo. So he went into customer service and helped in the education department, just like the female student they have there this year. And then realized, no, that really wasn't for him. In his senior year, they had him work in the aviary department with the birds. And now this young man's a senior in college, and he's studying zoology, and he wants to be a zookeeper, right? So that's interesting to see the opportunity. The culture that Rob mentioned, the zoo, is one that's warm and welcoming. It's a safe space for our students to explore new careers and interests, figure out what they want to do and what they don't want to do. To the one student who is now in HR, she started off the year working in the ocean department. And I was talking to her last week, and I said, I said, what are you doing? She goes, I'm working in the HR department. I'm like, oh, I thought you were working in the oceans department. She goes, I was. I said, what were you doing? She goes, oh, I was feeding the animals. I said, well, which one do you like more, HR or feeding the animals? And she said, oh, HR. I said, really? I think feeding the animals would be a lot of fun. She goes, oh, I love feeding the animals, but the fish just really stunk. And so now I'm in the HR department. I'm like, well, okay, you thought you want to be a zookeeper, but then you just didn't like how the fish smelled. So at least you learned that you like HR a little bit better. So I bring those 2 points out just to say that's one nice thing when you have an organization like the zoo who's willing to commit to those students for multiple years. The opportunity for growth is expanded at a different level.
Rob, I wanted to ask you, from your standpoint, as the chief executive of the zoo, is the zoo's participation in the program purely or mostly altruistic, or have you found there is a real business benefit to being part of this program?
I've studied animal behavior for a lot of years, and altruism to me has a really specific meaning. And I just want to make sure this is your interpretation. I mean, if you're altruistic, it's really that you're doing something purely for someone else, and you're not expecting any real benefit back from that at all, really entirely selfless. In that point, I would say we are absolutely not doing this purely to be altruistic. I actually, that isn't how I see the program at all, although I'll be interested to hear Tyler's perspective. But to me, this is really a partnership and a collaboration. I don't look at it as we are doing something for Providence Cristo Rey or we are doing something for the students. We are accomplishing things together. So for me, this is much more collaborative, and our perspective is absolutely collaborative rather than altruistic. And I do think it's also fair to say these are wonderful kids, and I really enjoy them. They're high school kids. I have one daughter in high school right now, and my son's a sophomore in college. expectations for high school students in the work environment should be different. This is brand new for them. They're trying to figure it out. So in that regard, it is not our expectation that these students come in and, we want you to put in a hard 8 hours and go home tired. That's not what we're looking for. We want an opportunity for them to come in and learn. We want them to be in a professional environment. Certainly the zoo is a kind of an unusual professional environment or a unique professional environment. We want them to experience that. So I think there's significant value for the students, certainly, but there is significant value for us. The students are working, and that's a very valuable thing for us. The other thing that's very valuable is they are helping us stay very connected to our local community. And we have programs that are regional and national and international here at the zoo. But our heart and soul is right here in Indianapolis, and we have a deep commitment to our local community. Providence Cristo Rey, I think it's about a 5-minute drive from our campus. It's really close. We're all part of the same neighborhood. We're all part of the same community. And we feel very, very good and very fortunate about being able to support our local community. So in that way, this is absolutely a partnership and mutually beneficial for all of us, certainly in my perspective.
Now, a quick word about our sponsor. Work and Learn Indiana is where work-based learning connections are made. It's free, it's easy, it's a win for both Indiana learners and employers. Its newly updated website hosts Indiana's largest statewide marketplace of work and learn opportunities that promotes talent and career development. Details at workandlearnindiana.com.
Rob, you touched on a little earlier about what being affiliated with this program has done for the zoo. But can you talk a little bit about maybe what's brought to your employees and what's done for your company's culture?
As mentioned earlier, we view this as truly collaborative. And what I like about it, I should back up and say, one of the things I think is most important, but I also like about it, this sometimes stretches our employees a little bit. It gets them in a good way. It asks them to get out of kind of their normal routine. And I had a mentor a long time ago who told me, if you really want to understand something, you have to either teach it or write it. And I think that's true. You might think you know it until you have to explain it to somebody else, either through teaching it or writing it. And that's one of the things where I like how this stretches folks, and it's good for our culture. And I mean absolutely no disrespect when I say that, these young high school scholars come in and they don't know what we're doing here. They haven't, of course, they haven't been in a work environment. This is their first time. So you really do have to break things down and explain it and teach and train in the very best sense. And I think that's fantastic for our employees, because you have to really then talk about your job and explain how you do it well and why you do it and why it's important here at the zoo. But you have to explain it to someone who's coming from a very different mindset. They're very young. They spend most of their time in high school. Maybe they come from a very different background. And I really like that. And it forms great friendships between our staff members and the young scholars that we're working with. So I see this as a total win-win for us. And to be fair, we do have to select the person that they work with here at the zoo thoughtfully. It has to be someone who's willing to be a little bit more outgoing, someone who's happy to be verbal and to make a little bit more effort every day on the day that their intern is here with them. But I also like the fact that people see this as a privilege. So our staff members see it as a a privilege when they have a chance to work or mentor one of these young scholars. So this is just a great collaboration for us. And I will tell you, we were especially happy that it ramped up again in 2021, largely normally. We really missed it during the last school year, and we're absolutely happy to have it back.
It's interesting to hear you talk there, Rob. It kind of harkens back to my earlier question about the value of organizations being involved in this. And I think, it's easy to think that, and the students are getting a big upside with the exposure that they get, but it sounds like to me that your employees are getting some exposure to, people and cultures and different ways that they otherwise wouldn't have by being a part of this program.
Well, I think that's true, and in the sense, I mean, probably in a whole variety of ways. I can start with maybe one of the easiest is, we have a lot of really great people that work here, and they're really committed to their jobs, and they do make a fantastic effort every single day. But it is easy to just kind of get in your routine and do your job, even though you're doing it well. You can just kind of do your job every day, and maybe forget how important it is to the organization and what a contribution you actually make. But when you have to then explain it to someone and teach it to someone and mentor someone, I think it helps you understand your own value to the organization that much better. So even in that sense, I think this is something that is personally and professionally rewarding for the people that we work with here. And then, of course, in other ways too, but if each person who mentors the students comes away feeling good about that, knowing they've made a great contribution to helping this young scholar on their career path and their academic path, and they feel good about themselves and their own job, man, what's not to like about that?
I imagine it must be especially rewarding when a situation happens like what Tyler mentioned earlier, when a student discovers that they have a passion for what you do there at the zoo and want to follow that pursuit.
Yeah, and all kidding aside, Tyler's absolutely right. It's super valuable no matter what. It's super valuable if a kid thinks they want to work at the zoo and work with animals. The best way to find out if you like it is to come and try it out and do it. And it goes one or two ways, always. You either find out, yep, this is really what I want, and it's way better and way more interesting than I imagined, and I'm totally devoted, or you find out, nope, this is not for me. And either way, it's valuable because they haven't wasted 4 years of high school and 4 years of college thinking that they want to do X job. They get on the right path and find that right path so that they can be successful. So we do not consider it any kind of a failure if a scholar comes here and decides, let's, like Tyler mentioned, IT, that's another one. It could be HR, it could be education, not just the animal department. If they come here and find out it's not what they really wanted, not what they want to commit themselves to, because let's face it, if that's your job, you're going to be doing it a lot for a long time. If that's not what you want to do, I'm so happy you figured that out when you're 15 or 16 or 17 and not when you're 25 or 30 after you went for 4 years of school and all that time and effort. So good for you. Now get on the right path. So no matter what, it's a success.
I think we've got time for one more question that I wanted to ask Dr. Rob, but real quickly, we didn't go over. I wanted to ask you, Tyler, just give us a real quick thumbnail sketch of how the payment process works. As I understand it, the students don't really get paid per se. The money goes straight back to the school. And what does it cost the company in dollars and cents?
Yeah, so it costs the company $6,200 per student per year, and that is paid directly to the school. And then we apply that to their tuition. Companies work out different payment options and models and such. And so we work with each company individually to make sure that works for their own billing cycle. In addition, and the zoo is one of the partners that does this outside of the program, because our students only work during the school year and they don't work in the normal breaks, Thanksgiving, Christmas, spring break, summer. But some organizations like the zoo do choose to employ the students during those break times. And then they can still pay those organizations will pay us, and then we'll turn around and pay those students at those situations. But when it's during the school year, it gets applied directly to their tuition.
So Dr. Rob, I would imagine you have other companies coming to you from time to time to get your thoughts since you're so involved. What would you tell another company contemplating taking on a Providence Cristo Rey student?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I can tell you plainly, make sure you're the right kind of organization and that you have the right people. And here's why I say that. Don't go into this thinking that you're hiring someone at an hourly rate for a certain amount of labor. That's really not what this is. This isn't working at the car wash or fast food or something like that. And if that's what your company needs, this isn't the right program for you. If you're interested in really investing in one of these young scholars, in my view, over a number of years is preferable. And you have the right people in your organization who really want to make a difference in their community, really want to do something to benefit these young kids who really do need that investment. You're probably the right place, but think through it and make sure you have those people and that they're ready and that your organization is flexible enough to provide the kind of value that these kids need and that they deserve.
As we close out the podcast, what parting words do you both have for employers about this program and its impact? Tyler, let's start with you.
I mean, I could do a whole podcast just on that question, I think. I think really the biggest thing for us, like I said before, we have those three elements: college prep academics, college completion, corporate work study. The big difference maker time and time again is our corporate work study program, because it's doing much more than just providing opportunity for our students to learn those soft skills, to learn those hard skills. It's providing more than just the opportunity to explore interests. It's giving them a boost in confidence, and even more importantly, a significant increase in their own self-worth. A quick story to illustrate that point. I take this job a year and a half ago. I was intentional. I wanted to meet with 10 alumni. I want to hear from these 10 alumni. What was this program? What is the school to us as an organization? And one of the first people that I got connected with, his name was Dorian Harvey. So I got connected because a contact of mine, his name is Tim Mallarney, is the director of IT at Shield Sexton. And Dorian, when he was with us at Providence Cristo Rey, worked at Shield Sexton in the IT department sophomore, junior, senior year. So I get connected with Dorian and hear a story. Dorian transferred in his sophomore year, and he said school always came naturally to him, but college was never an option. And he knew he wanted to do something with technology, and college wasn't an option because of his family situation. And then I asked him, okay, what was your favorite experience about Providence Cristo Rey? And before I could even finish the question, he's like, the corporate work study program. And I was a little surprised by that. And I'm thinking, like, well, if I was a high school student, would I love going to school 4 days a week and working? I'm not sure if I'd love this. And I said, well, why? And he said, it was my junior or my senior year that it was the first time in my life that I felt seen and I felt like I had value. And I was like, holy cow, like, I've been working with high school kids for 20 years. The first time in your life that you felt you were seen, you had value when you're 17. I have to say, I thought a lot about that on my ride home. And I didn't remember this at the time, but when Tim had set up the call, he said, you got to meet Dorian. He's a special young man. We figured out about his junior, senior year that of all the folks in the IT department, Dorian was actually the smartest one out of all of us. So by his senior year, he was our lead IT technician. So if it was his work day, he was the one that we sent to go fix or install whatever needed to be done. And come his senior year, Dorian said, I figured out that not only should I go to college, but I belong in college. I belong there. I'm deserving of that. He goes off to Franklin. He gets 2 separate internships while he's there. He graduated from Franklin College, and now 6 years later, full circle, he's working in the IT department back at Shield Sexton. So here's a young man that didn't feel seen and didn't feel like valued. He didn't feel like he was worthy enough or could find his way to a Shield Sexton. That's the biggest thing that this program does. Yes, it is mutually beneficial for the organizations, and we hear that time and time again, because these organizations not only does it give an opportunity for some folks on their end to help grow in their own professionalism, but they learn a lot from our scholars and from our students about what their life experiences are. So I guess my one big takeaway I'd like to have from this is not a charity. This is a program that needs to be invested in. Our students are absolutely worthy of the investment. And if the company is the right company and they're committed to making positive, proactive, constructive change within our community and our city, I think personally, I might be a little bit biased, that there is nothing better than, becoming partners in our corporate work-study program, because it's all the way around. It's a value add to everyone. So that would be my parting word, or better said, my parting words. So there it is.
Rob?
The students are smart, they're reliable, super respectful, super appreciative of the opportunity. These are the kind of kids that you can't do enough for. They're just terrific. So there's nothing holding back some organization from making a really strong commitment here. And don't feel as though you have to take on 10 kids. Start with one. And the financial commitment's very approachable. Do one kid, and if it goes well, think about expanding over time. I can guarantee you from my perspective now, and our organization has been doing this continuously since 2014. Try it, you'll like it. You'll feel really good about it, and you'll be doing something that is authentically good for our community and for these kids and for your own organization.
Thank you both for joining us today. In Chamber is presented by Work and Learn Indiana. Learn more about the work study program we discussed today at CristoReyIndy.org. Before we sign off, the Chamber's marquee business event is around the corner. Our 32nd annual awards dinner on November 9th features racing legend Roger Penske in a one-of-a-kind conversation with Governor Holcomb asking the questions. The event takes place at the Indiana Convention Center. Tickets and tables are available at indianachamber.com/AD. As always, thank you for listening.